All righty, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully, mostly everyone has joined us. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the ACT Chesapeake Chapter's webinar on equity and digital marketing with speakers Laurie Williams and Nicholas Kosar. Laurie's with Black Women Bike, and Nicholas is with Wells and Associates. Before we get started, we want to hear from our membership chair, Holly. Holly, do you want to take it away?
Thank you so much, Emily. Yes, just a quick minute, you guys. First up, I'd like to welcome our newest Chesapeake chapter members, and they are Katie Thompson from Destination Sales and Marketing in Arlington, Virginia, and Samir Safi from World Bank in Washington, D.C. So next up is my shameless membership plug. So I'll just take a couple seconds to remind everyone that as an ACT member, your benefits include networking with TDM professionals locally, regionally, and nationally, learning from industry leaders, shaping policies that impact TDM, increasing the visibility of your organization nationally, and growing yourself professionally. So if you value your chapter membership, please consider expanding the number of ACT members within your organization, and or talk with friends and colleagues who work in transit and transit adjacent industries about the benefits of being an ACT member, and recommend that they join the fun. We've got a lot of members whose ACT membership expires in December. So I'm reminding you all that it's easy to find the membership tab on the ACT website. And once you're there, it's even easier to click on join or renew. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. You can reach me at hmorello@omniride.com. And thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the webinar.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Just a reminder that on Thursday, November 19th, we're going to have our virtual member celebration. This is where we're going to announce our new board members beginning in January, as well as our award ceremony, a guest speaker, and we'll have attendee gifts. So hopefully you'll hear something from us via email in the next couple of weeks to sign up for that. A few housekeeping items. Please stay on mute until our Q&A session, and we'll do that after both presentations. If you want, you can ask a question in the chat box, and we will definitely bring that up during the Q&A. Excuse me. Now let's get started. Laurie Williams, she's our first speaker. She's was a senior computer scientist. She's retired for the government for over 25 years. She's now an avid cyclist, a mentor for the Washington Area Bicyclists Association Women on Bicycle program, and has started advocating for better biking infrastructure and safe streets for everyone. She is on the local leadership team of her biking group, Black Women Bike DC, and they promote biking for all women, especially Black women of all ages, for fun, exercise, health, and the economy. Over the last 5 years, she became a league cyclist instructor certified by the League of American Bicyclists. She privately teaches learn how to ride classes for bike safety and confident riding classes. Laurie's also a member of the Capital Trails Network Coalition, has testified about biking issues for the DC Council, and has been interviewed numerous times by the Washington Informer on biking, People Blog, and the WABA. Laurie, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yes, thank you, Emily. This webinar is Chesapeake webinar, Equity and Digital Marketing. That's a picture of me with my bike, one of my bikes. I have 3 bikes. And people of all ages, gender, race, and income level bike is a healthy, cheap, and green way to get around. Major cities are dealing with congestion and other traffic-related issues, and they are looking at biking as an alternative transportation mode, as well as a method of environmental sustainability. The question we have is access to biking equitable? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. What you will learn is about the transportation equity issues in the Washington, D.C. region, as well as the infrastructural inequities that prevent underserved communities from fully enjoying the boom in biking is an alternate transportation form. Lack of equitable access to biking in underserved communities. The first thing is there is a lack of bike shops in underserved communities, if any. In DC, east of the river, the Anacostia area, Congress Heights, Hillcrest Heights, we don't have any bike shops. This presents issues because a person cannot easily get their bike repaired in their community. And if their bike is their only form of transportation, that's a problem. A lot of bike shops in the area offer free how-to classes. While a bike shop in the community, the opportunity to learn about bike repair and bikes are lost. Bike shops also sponsor many free community rides that help you to get used to riding in your community. I do a lot ride motion for these rides, and I lead them. Another setback to not having a bike shop in your community is that you don't have a place to see the different bike gear that you might be interested in buying. If you have a bike shop, you can go and browse around and see what the latest things are. And then you could talk to people in the shop and they can tell you what you should have and what you shouldn't have. And so those are some major setbacks to the community that don't have biking in their neighborhood. Another setback is the lack of all type of bike lanes. And some of them are protected lanes, share lanes, and barriers. And right here, this picture is an example in Southeast DC. It's tell you that the bike route begins here. If you look at the street, where do you see a bike route? It's just a street. There's no marking here whatsoever. And so it's like, okay, where's my bike route? And we lack bike lanes in underserved areas, no matter if you're on a busy road or if you're over in a commercial area where you can get some shopping done. There's still, if you can see the street, there's still no type of bike lanes. This is a picture of an area in Northeast DC. They had this is a share lane with a picture of the bike on it. It means that the bike can take the full lane and share the lane with the cars. And this is a protected lane where there's actually a barrier between the cyclists and the street. The next deterrent is a lack of bike racks. Say I ride my bike somewhere and I get there, I don't have a bike rack to safely lock my bike. So that would even stop me from riding my bike there because I don't want my bike to be stolen. And with my bikes, 9 out of 10 times, if I can't take them in the building with me, then I won't take my bike there. There is a lack of bike racks to lock your bike safely to at grocery stores, post offices, medical buildings, etc. So that's a real deterrent. Another inequity we have is a lack of bike repair stations. A bike repair station is a public air pump, and then they have a stand next to it where you can post your bike on, and then they have about 6 or 7 different tools on a chain hanging to it. So if you are en route to somewhere and you have an issue with your bike, you can actually stop and make adjustments to your bike while you're en route. The underserved communities need the bike repair station more than any other part of the city. Why? Because they don't have any bike shops in their community. but there is still a lack of bike repair stations. And one of my examples is Anacostia Park. Anacostia Park is part of the National Park system and is now a major trail, has a major trail in it. The Anacostia River Trail is an alternated transportation route going through it, but it does not have one bike repair station in it. Now, speaking of trails, how are the bike trails in the underserved communities managed? Are they accessible? And by accessible, are they accessible by biking or walking from your community, or do you have to drive to them? If you need to drive to them, then that is a deterrent for some people that don't have cars. Sometimes you might get to a trail and it be closed due to this sign say road is closed due to high standing water. How long would the road be closed? There's no indication of it. And if you can look in this picture, you don't see any water anywhere. There's a reason why this road should be closed. So I don't know how long it's been closed and how long it's going to remain closed. And so it's like high waters after rain. Does the damage get repaired in a timely fashion? I had another picture, but I couldn't get it up out of my trash and back recovered, where the trail had eroded from rain damage. And it's been eroded for at least 3 years and not repaired. So every time I get to that place on the trail, I have to get off my bike and walk about 50 feet around this erosion and then continue the trip. So these damages do not get repaired in a timely fashion. In the underserved areas, are the trails functional? And by functional, I mean, do they have bathrooms, public restrooms, water fountains? Do they have the bike repair station there? I'm going to take Anacostia Park again. And the reason I do Anacostia Park is because they have the Anacostia River Trail that goes through it. And that's supposed to be a major alternative route now. And it's in Anacostia. And Anacostia Park has, in a 5-mile area, it has about 3 building bathrooms. All summer long, only one bathroom is open. The other 2 are not open, and they are not close to each other. So if you walk in and if one in the park and you need to go to the bathroom, you don't want to walk 2.5 miles to get to the next bathroom, or the only open bathroom that there is there. And I see that as a deterrent from using it. Because when people go to the park, they want to have cookouts, they want to go fishing, they want to walk, they want to have fun. They're going to be there for several hours. And in those several hours, you can expect that a person might have to use the bathroom. Another deterrent that I see in the underserved communities are the trails operational. By operational, I mean the hours that they are open to the public. Anacostia River Trail is supposed to be an alternative transportation route that is a major portion of it goes through Anacostia Park. As you can see in this sign, the park closed at dark. The park is open from Memorial Day to Labor Day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. After Labor Day, the second week in September, it closed at dark. Now, suppose you use that route to take yourself to and from work. And in the wintertime in this area, it can get dark a little after 4 o'clock. If you get off after 4, you cannot use this alternative transportation route to get home because the park is closed. And that's a major route for you to get home. You would be forced to ride on the unsafe streets because the streets in the underserved communities have very few marked bike lanes of any kind. So the cyclist would have to feel very confident in his or her abilities to ride on the street like that. And like I said, once again, I feel that this is another deterrent to keep people that live in the underserved community from biking. One of the other things I have noticed is Anacostia Park is a national park, and it is run by the National Park Service. And the Capitol Crescent Trail that goes from Georgetown all the way up into Bethesda is also run by the National Park Service. But in the wintertime, it doesn't close at dark. But Anacostia Park does. I think that the people in the underserved communities feel that they are not invited to bike and to be a part of, to take part in the bike and broom is alternative transportation. And I also feel that they feel that their city do not care about their safety or them. And that's my personal comment. We're going to defer the questions to later, but I will stop the questions with what about helmets, and then we will have the answers for you. So that's the end of my presentation for right now.
Okay, thanks so much, Laurie. Yep, we'll definitely get those at the end. Our next speaker is Nicholas Kosar from Wells and Associates, and we're going to have his coworker Courtney Menjivar introduce him. So Courtney, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. So as Emily mentioned, my name is Courtney Menjivar, and I'm a principal at Wells and Associates. And more importantly, I've been a member of ACT for well over a decade. Nick and I were talking today about how long that's been, and it was a little hard for me to count backwards. So I'm going to go with a decade, and maybe I've given myself a few extra years in youth. Let's see. But I'm excited today to introduce our next panelist and a colleague of mine, and who will be talking to us about digital marketing in the COVID era. But for those that may not be familiar with Wells and Associates, I just wanted to take a few seconds or 1 minute or so just to introduce Wells and Associates to you. And we are a real estate focused transportation consulting firm. So we have specialty practices that range from TDM and mobility management, transportation research, traffic engineering, parking and planning, as well as signal design. And I personally co-lead the TDM practice with Justin Shore, another fellow ACT member, and I'm also a member of our digital team. Today's presentation.
Courtney, I'm sorry, could you put your microphone down? Is your microphone down to your, on your headset?
Can anyone hear me?
There we go.
Sorry.
Okay.
Did everyone hear me? Sorry. It's a bad habit. I won't start over. I'll start with today's presentation and what it's about. And that is digital marketing. I thought first during this intro was to kind of share some of the digital marketing goals that we have at Wells Associates as an intro. So about 4 years ago, we made a commitment as a company to invest in digital marketing, not just as marketing in terms of communication tools or channels, but as a strategic direction due to the change in landscape in marketing communication that we're seeing in today's world. And our digital goals as a company are driven by these goals, both at a company level as well as in our projects and programs. And so our goals, as you see in front of you, range from influencing travel behavior in our programs, as well as connecting with peers and continuously learning in the industry. Now, my colleague, Nick Kosar, leads our firm's digital marketing and communication efforts. And one thing to keep in mind that Nick does not have a degree in digital marketing. I'm going to repeat that, does not have a degree in digital marketing, but rather he has a liberal arts background with an MBA. From web and graphic design to social media marketing to software coding, he has learned most of this by himself and on the job. So another way of saying is that you can too, and I can personally attest to that learning in the journey that I've taken with Nick as well. So prior to joining Wells, he had a 12-year-long career in publishing, running a travel magazine in Tokyo. So working at a digital publisher and working in book magazine publishing. So certainly has a great handle on the importance of content and content creation. He came to Wells after 12 years or 12-year stint in marketing and business development, working for very two large firms, including Bracewell and Giuliani. And as you will see, as we go through his presentation, his focus is really joining together the great design with technical aspects and really getting yourself more informed and more educated about the technical aspects so that they can lead your strategy development and your content development. These aspects apply both to the web and social media, and with the goal of really merging digital with human interaction. So without further ado, Nick, take it away.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me? All right. You know, all of a sudden you're sharing your screen and all of a sudden I can't find the mute or unmute button. And it's like, oh no. I wanted to say thank you, Courtney. When I was listening to Loretta, I thought, wow, I think I forgot the most important thing about all this. And I guess I could sum that as authenticity. Because when I was watching Loretta's presentation and listening to it, I thought that's exactly what it was. I felt that not only is she knowledgeable about the issues of equity and bike transportation, but she experiences it. And Loretta, I don't know if it's true or not, but I felt like you took every photo on there. So it's not about, you know, pizzazz and all that so much. It's about that. So I want to thank you for helping with me with my presentation. This presentation is not going to be about this is how you tweet. This is not, you know, oh, this is how you create a LinkedIn page. Okay. A lot of those things you can Google them yourself. If you run into something and you want to email me or Courtney, we're completely happy to talk to you. But it's about so many different things. And when I think about digital marketing, I think about a million things run through my head. Okay. This is also, I want to say it's not going to be about developing great online meetings such as Zoom conferences. Okay. We don't have a lot of experience with that, but what I would say is I hope that a lot of the principles that I talk about would apply to, for example, if you need to do a digital conference or something like that. During COVID, this is kind of all we have. I mean, that's us, right? You know, and what I want to, one of the things I hope you get out of this is to know, to use every digital tool that's at your disposal, because you actually do have a lot of them. Okay. It definitely is something that can open the door to new relationships, new audiences, and all of that. And one more thing before I really get going, I have to say, occasionally somebody will refer to me as a social media guru. As Courtney can attest, social media is probably the part of this that I least like doing, but I do it. But there is no such thing as guruism with this, okay? It is about just understanding the principles, getting skills, and applying them, okay? So what do you do? I mean, there's a lot of different things that we all work on in digital communications, digital marketing, whatever you want to call it. You know, what do you prioritize? How do you do them? How do you link them together? It's a real challenge. And so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about 4 what I call digital principles or realities. Okay. I'm sure that you don't not know these, but I want to kind of get them, you know, really put them in concise form for you. And then what I'm going to do is come up with some recommendations. Now that's a tough one because we have all kinds of people on this call, large universities, smaller TMAs, you know, all kinds of organizations, all of you with different challenges. So what I hope you do is you learn something something new. I hope maybe something you already knew about, that you have a little better understanding of it. And I hope that there's some things that you can start to do next week or next month, or even say, you know, we're going to start doing that in January. Okay. And so it's not a one size fits all. It would be impossible to do that. So here are the 4 principles that I want to discuss. And when I discuss these, I think what you're going to find is I'm already giving you some recommendations, some ideas, some suggestions of what to do. When I get to the end, the last part, the recommendations, it's more going to be like a reiteration, I think, as much as anything of what I was talking about. And so these are, in order, the long tail. And now I feel like I should be on Jeopardy or something. The long tail, own versus rent, SEO. What exactly is it, and how do you do SEO? Okay. And the fact that nobody reads anything online. Now, I'm sorry to leave that on kind of a downer because, well, you might think, well, if nobody reads anything online, why am I even trying this? What I am trying to do is sort of understand the reality of how people behave online. And that means all of us, including me. And what can we do to kind of work within the reality in that system. Now, many of you were kind enough to fill out a survey that we distributed that was hugely helpful. Okay. And one of the things that we realized in the survey was that everybody is doing content. Everybody is posting to social media, or they have websites and that kind of thing. Anything you do where it's in written form or even in visual form is content. I mean, if you look at Loretta's presentation, I mean, sometimes it was like seeing is believing, right? So content can be images as well. So how we manage all of these principles, the real engine behind all that, the fuel, is going to be content. And I say that to you because I want you to feel like you have some ability to change and improve what you're doing, what your mission is. Okay. Again, I'm going back to Loretta's PowerPoint. It's like all those images set a story. She could get that online, put it, you know, in a Twitter story, anything like that. Okay. So the one thing I do want to say is absolutely nobody is doing this perfectly, including us. Courtney and I will attest. There are things in here that we have been doing in some areas of our work, and in other areas we have said we're not even there yet. We're not even going to do some of those things. And why is nobody doing this perfectly? For a million reasons. Okay. I think all of you see these, you know, we saw from the survey, there are some cases where there's one person doing your digital communications, and maybe there's 5 people and you still don't feel that that's enough. Okay. So this is not a sort of self-loathing environment we're going to be in. It's just, I want you to know nobody's doing it perfectly. And the great thing about digital is that you can kind of improve it bit by bit. Okay. So let's go excuse me, into the first principle, and that is called the long tail. You may have heard people talk about long tail keywords, that kind of thing. I always kind of cringe when they use this term, but they don't explain what it is. So I'm going to show you what it is in a couple graphs. This is a very simple graph, okay? And what I'd like you to do temporarily is just to ignore all the words that you see on this page. All you see is an x-axis along the bottom, the y-axis going vertically, and there's a curve, okay? And the green part of that curve, it's what is the long tail, okay? Now, again, keep imagining that there are no words on this. I want you to assume that on the x-axis, on the horizontal line, represents every website or web page in existence. Okay, so websites or web pages are on the x-axis. The y-axis is how many clicks and visits those pages get. And what this curve means is that there are very, very few websites that get a lot of clicks. Amazon, Google, Wikipedia, maybe your favorite media source can get lots of clicks. Okay, but very quickly, that curve goes down to where there are not a lot of clicks on most websites and web pages. And that green tail goes off to the right basically forever. Okay. And probably if you added up all the web traffic underneath the green section, you're going to get more traffic than there is on the websites like Wikipedia that get tons of traffic. Okay. what I'm getting at is we live in a niche world, okay? It never used to be this way until starting maybe 25 years ago, okay? And that is important. I really want you to know this, that whatever your mission is, okay, you need to understand that and know your niche. Now let's put these words back into this where you see like number 1 word phrases, 2 to 3 word phrases, that kind of thing. If somebody is looking up for something called like shoes, there are going to be websites that explain the history of shoes, maybe Wikipedia, okay? But people are not selfish, they're self-oriented, okay? They're going to find exactly what they want to find. If it's equity in bike infrastructure, if you live in the DC area, you're going to be Googling about it in the DC area, not necessarily in Seattle, okay? And when you've heard the words keyword or key phrase, they are the exact same thing. I tend to use like the word key phrase, okay? But a keyword or a key phrase is not just one word. It's a phrase that represents a niche. And what that really represents is what is the person searching want, okay? The opposite side of that is we have to provide content that serves that, okay? So let's look at this a slightly different way. This absolutely pertains to SEO, search engine optimization, which I'm going to go into a little later, okay? Search engine optimization is basically making sure that those human beings who are typing out searches for their particular problem or issue want the information that they need, okay? So we go through phases. A lot of the content that is out there on websites, on social media, is for consumption when somebody has informational intent, okay? We do it all the time. I need to buy a chainsaw. Well, I'm gonna start Googling it. I wanna know what kinds of chainsaws there are, what sizes, where can I get them? And you're Googling and searching for stuff and it's all informational. At some point you have commercial intent. Commercial means you're gonna buy. It doesn't necessarily mean buy. In our context, it might mean what I would call a conversion. You do something on a website, okay? And that might mean that you sign up for a webinar, right? At the end of October. It might be that you sign up for an email newsletter, something like that, conversions, okay? So really another way I'm getting at this is homepages in a way are irrelevant. Now, homepages are very important. You've got to do the best you can with them. But if you think about the way that you search, we just bought a pressure cooker. I didn't care to go to the Amazon.com main page. I wanted to go straight to the sections where I could look up information. Same with Home Depot or whatever it is, okay? So this is about individual pages, and that's what SEO is about, really. It's not about people finding your website. It's finding the right information that is for them, okay? Now, I want to kind of explain, why does a long tail economy exist? For a bunch of reasons. First, the internet happened, and this is not in any particular order, maybe a little bit. You might remember around 2002, early 2000s, all of a sudden we started moving away from dial-up and we have fast broadband, high-speed internet. It means we can start having videos. YouTube did not exist before broadband, okay? Then we have mobile devices that started happening about 12 years ago, the cloud, et cetera, okay? What this means is there are so many channels and ways to communicate information. We don't just have 3 nationwide networks plus a local channel plus PBS for TV. We don't have just magazines and newspapers. We've got a million ways of finding the information we want, okay? So one more thing about the long tail, just to convince you, okay? If you looked up the 25 top albums of all time, the best-selling albums, okay? I want you to just, I'm not going to do a formal quiz, but I want you to think, what year was the last album released that is in the top 25 all-time list, okay? Just think about what year might that be, okay? All right, I'm going to give you the answer. It was 9 years ago, okay? Now, this is the only album in the last 20 years that is in the top 25 list, okay? Some people might say, well, that's because no, they don't do any, they don't write good music anymore. But the fact is 4 out of 25 of the albums were released prior to the year 2000. Okay. And that doesn't have to do with the musicians. It has to do with the distribution networks that people just find whatever they want. We're not in that kind of limited channel distribution mindset anymore. Just so you know, top of all time, if you want to quickly guess, I'm sure some of you know that. Yep, you guessed it, Thriller. Okay, so here's the wrap up for long tail takeaways. Focus on your niche. Everybody has a niche, or you may have multiple niches, okay? That is where you really start to get your message out, okay? Don't try to compete against the Wikipedias and everybody else, okay? Use key phrases, that means content that the people who are searching for are going to be using, okay? Almost every organization has lingo that they use internally, but maybe that's not what our audiences are using, okay? So the key phrases have to be what people use, okay? And that's another way of saying think from your customer's perspective. Okay, so that's it. Own your niche. Okay, a lot goes into that, but own your niche. Second principle, owned versus rented media, okay? And it's really quite simple. Owned means you have pretty much total control over your media, your platform, and rented is you don't have as much control, okay? So I think Courtney would know this is not about good versus bad, but I have a bias, okay? My bias is toward the owned media because I feel like we can do more with it, okay? So if that slips out, that's fine, but this is not good versus bad. What I want you to understand is there's a reason for having both and that you can leverage both to the best effect, okay? So what do you own? You basically own two things. You own your website and you own your email list and your email platform if you have one. Okay, nobody can take these away from you. Mark Zuckerberg can't tell you what to do with these. That's our mobile version of our website on the left. We can decide which buttons we want on there. We can decide, the language, everything. Okay. Same is true with our email programs. And Break Shuttle is a shared mobility service that we run with universities around the country. So here I'm going to give you a list of benefits and weaknesses because they have both of these. So for owned media, the key thing is nobody's going to take it away from you. As long as you pay your bills to the web hosting company and do what you need to do, your website is there forever. Okay. It's a place where you can really concentrate all of your information. You can become the expert for your niche. By concentrating all the information on your website. Your SEO is not about social media. It's about your website and your web pages, okay? It's really the place where you have the control over the message. The weaknesses are, nobody's guaranteed to come to your website. When I went searching for a pressure cooker last week, I did not go to the pressurecooker.com website, okay? I went to Google. The last bullet point shows people start with Google. If you're a Bing user, total respect. I'm just using Google as the proxy because they basically have a monopoly over the search market. But you have to do all the work yourself. You have to make sure that that you're running it properly. Sometimes there's turf wars or something, what goes on the homepage, that sort of thing. I think I noticed at least one of our participants, their website was not on HTTPS. You've got to be on a secure connection. That basically means if you're going to your bank, you're always on a secure connection. That stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. And what that means is whatever you enter into your computer that goes to the other website, it's totally secure. Nobody can hack it. Okay. Google will stop showing non-secure websites, maybe even next year. Okay. But anyway, the point is you've really got to manage the whole thing yourself. So what is rented media? I mean, that's my term. I'm not the only one to use it. It's basically social media, okay? One of the great things about it is it's there. You could have a built-in audience very quickly, They make it easy to publish images, articles, all kinds of things. People are already there. You can connect with what I'll call influencers. When I use that term, no, I'm not talking about, the Kardashians or whoever. I mean, every sector of our world has influencers. It's mobile friendly. You can download the app version of your network. And they have what's called a strong domain authority. For any sector in the economy, every website has a score. It's sort of like a credit score. Now, Google and Bing have their scores, but we don't know what those are. But there are a lot of services out there that will basically tell you how you rank against your peers. It's hard to build a good high domain authority. Why do you want a good domain authority? If you have a great domain authority and you publish the same thing as 5 other websites, if your domain authority, meaning your website authority, is greater, then Google is going to show your content in search results over your competitors. Okay. You've probably seen this. You Google somebody. One of the first things you'll see is their bio on LinkedIn, or you'll see their Instagram account. That's because those platforms have great domain authority. So it's a great place to go because people are already there. Okay. Some of the weaknesses. I just want to say it. Mark Zuckerberg does not care about you. Okay. He does want your money. I don't know him personally. I don't have anything personally against him. When you share, let's say your organization has a Facebook account, a Facebook page, and you share something on Facebook, and let's say you have 1,000 followers. Studies have shown only 1% to 2% of the people who are your followers will actually see your content. That is depressing. That's really, really depressing. Okay. How do you get people to actually see it? You pay Mark Zuckerberg. Okay. You advertise and you'll get people to see it. Okay. I think it can be difficult to find the right content. It's just not always there. When we go to bed at night, they might change how their system works at 2 a.m. Okay. So you kind of have to keep learning how to do it. Okay. One of the key things is the idea of broadcast versus engagement. Okay. I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this. Most people probably on this call have grown up in a broadcast world. You know, when you're younger, you watch TV and everybody is watching the same program. Okay. That doesn't exist anymore. Okay. If you tweet something, if you share something on Facebook, people aren't going to go flocking to that. Okay. We have this broadcast mentality. I do too. I always think, oh, somebody's waiting there for my content, and they're not. Okay. The way this really works is we have to do what's called engagement. You've probably heard this before. Engagement means you need to listen to other people. You have to have dialogues. LinkedIn loves when you keep your content on LinkedIn. They don't want you to share a link to your website. Okay. We still do it, but they want everybody on their platform because that's how they make money. Okay. And so the more that you create engagement, where you're actually having dialogue with people, that's where you win. But the thing is, it's difficult to do. Okay. But because it's difficult to do and not everybody's doing it, if you start doing it, you can start winning. Okay. So I don't want to kind of just paint this all as a negative thing. I just want to point out some of the challenges. So the third one is SEO, okay? And I think most people have a general idea of what this is, and I'm going to go through some examples to kind of hopefully really drive it home what this is. SEO is this. What does Google think? Search engine optimization. That's what Google is. What does Google think when somebody types in a search term? What is Google thinking? Okay. Now that's a question. What is Google thinking? And I'll tell you, Google is thinking, what do humans want? Okay. When somebody types out a search term, that's what Google's thinking. And they're thinking, what web pages do we show these humans? So the question is, what do humans want? And I'll tell you what humans want. They want the best answer. And as Courtney and I were talking about this presentation, she added, and they want it right away, right? Want the best answer right away. And so our job, the job of SEO, is to build content and structure it so that people can get the best answer right away. Okay. And that's difficult, doesn't happen overnight. But it kind of builds up. It's sort of a campaign that you have to work on. It's not just a one-time thing. If anybody says, oh, I'll do SEO on your site and it's a one-time thing, it never works out that way. Okay. So in other words, If SEO is the fever, okay, the prescription is more content. Call it cowbell if you want. It's all about content, okay? And what is it about content? Now, you just can't shove content at people and it's going to work. It's how you work with it. So it's these, there's really 5 things here. The 6th is sort of an add-on, okay? Google has a measure in their algorithm where they actually measure websites and how often they update their content. They love when people update content regularly. If I have 2 websites which virtually identical content and one website updates their content more often than the other, guess who wins? The people who publish to a blog or whatever it is, okay? It also has to be content where you're using the right key phrases, okay? In other words, you have to know who your audience is, your stakeholders, your customers, whatever you call them, and use those key phrases on your websites, okay? Structuring, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to show you how you can structure your content. Even if you don't control your website, I'm going to hopefully give you some ideas of how you can work with your webmaster, the people who run it, to kind of tweak it and improve it, okay? Inbound links, that's links from somebody else's website to your website. Sometimes that's called backlinks. I kind of hate the term. It confuses me. I call them inbound links. I've been doing genealogy work for a few years. I just found out, I think, who my great-great-grandparents were, going back to where their little village was in southern Poland. And I'm pretty sure that my second great-grandmother was the midwife for the village, because her name, or a name like hers, keeps coming up. And I'm thinking, how do people know to go to her? Well, it's recommendations. Oh, you're having a baby? You better go to Anna. You better go to Anna. It's recommendations. When you have links to your website, those are nothing more than recommendations. Google, the guys who founded Google in the 1990s decided that was going to be a key element of which pages would rank, which is how many links are there from other sites to your site. That is really hard to do, but if you can start doing that, your SEO is going to really improve, okay? The other thing is, you probably have many pages on your site. Link them together, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Google likes to see that people can find all the information they want, okay? Finally, sharing your content on social media always helps, but it doesn't exactly solve the problem, okay? So some quick things. I don't get too techie. If I search for transit information for the University of Pennsylvania, everybody has seen a screen like this on Google. That title is the blue thing and the description is there. Every web page has a title. The title is the most important thing you can do, okay? So focus on that. I went through El Paso a few years ago with my daughter, who was moving from DC to LA. I took photos of these bike shares, so I thought, let's use this as an example. So I Googled this, okay? This is like on that right-hand photo below the bike sign, you can see like a mountain. That's Mexico, and we're on the campus of University of Texas, El Paso here. So I Googled bike share for University of Texas, El Paso students, UTEP, okay? And here's the thing. If I was going, or my kid was going to UTEP and I wanted to know about bike share, this is the search term I would use. None of these search results actually is this bike service. So I thought, I'm not sure they're doing the job they should be doing. So I changed my search term. I tried UTEP bike share program. I finally found it, El Paso bicycle, or B-cycle. And the only reason this appeared is because my term, bike share program, happened to be in their description on their page. Their page says nothing about UTEP, even though UTEP students are probably a huge people who use their service. So what could they do? This is their website. And in fact, their map confirms this is exactly near where we stayed. Definitely UTEP students would be using this. So this is their website. And when I look at the title tag, which you can do by clicking, you right click, it's not as difficult as you might think. I see that their title, which is the most important piece of content on this page, simply says El Paso B-cycle. I'm never going to remember the name of it. If they simply said bike share, I probably would have found this in the first time. What would I have done? I would do something like rename the title El Paso B-cycle bike share for UTEP students, or maybe create a second page devoted just for students, okay? always think about the end user, okay? Even, if you guys know a little coding, the H1 tag, which is also an important tag, says bike sharing is here, exclamation point. From what I can tell, this is at least 3.5 years old. So, 3.5 years later, you should no longer have bike sharing is here as your headline. The message there is it's digital. You can always change it, okay? And you always should. On their FAQ page, they don't mention UTEP. It would be pretty easy to do that or to add a new web page, okay? Keywords. What could they do? There's a lot of different key phrases they could use, and here's just some examples. I'm not an expert on it, but this is the kind of thing I would do to be able to expand my audience, okay? So wrap up, regular content updates, how you structure your web content, make sure your title is the right title. If you don't have a paragraph on your page right below the title explaining what that page is about, add a paragraph, because that first paragraph is really important real estate for Google. They look at that first paragraph, okay? Okay, number 4. Nobody reads anything, they just look at stuff, okay? I have I think I'm right when I say people glance at stuff. I've got, a ton of web pages in the browser on my iPhone that I haven't read yet. I'm sure all of you are the same. Okay, we're glancing all day long. The trick is, how can we turn glances to real reading, real content consumption, and even better, get other people to share our information, okay? And even better, build trust, okay? That gets into like authenticity. What I like to think is it's more like a never-ending cycle. And the more we can kind of insert being a human into what we're doing digitally, the better. I'm going back to that authenticity comment I made at the very beginning. If you're authentic, people are going to buy into it more, okay? So what the challenge is to move it from people just glancing at stuff to really paying attention to you, and you can do it, okay? So how do you do that? There are probably influencers, again, people who are sort of important in your niche. We believe in sharing platforms, making other people look good. We're all in this together, whatever our area is, okay? Engagement, it's not about broadcast. It's about engagement. It's about listening to other people. And if you can do that, I think you'll find that people are going to pay more attention to your content out there, whether it's on your website or especially even on social media. Okay. So here's an example. One of our colleagues, Justin Shore, co-authored a book on transportation demand management, kind of building TDM programs throughout in communities throughout the country. And so when this book first came out, we know that Urban Land Institute, who published this, ULI, was very keen on promoting it. And so one of the things that Justin did was he interviewed some of the people at ULI to ask, why did you even want to publish this book? It was took a lot of effort. And the end result was when you include other people and allow them a voice, when you start sharing on social media and other places, people pay more attention. You can tag them. Okay, here's an example. We wrote a couple months ago an article about transportation demand management in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we included quotes from people like from an architect and others. It was sort of we're not the only people who know what we're talking about. There's a lot of people who know what they're talking about. So we like to be inclusive. And what happens is when we start sharing that on social media, good things happen. This is one of many comments that we had on our LinkedIn platform, where somebody just said, they had their own message of what they wanted to send, and they tagged our company in here. They tagged another company. Again, it's about dialogue. It's about engagement. Okay. So this is the recommendation section, and it's sort of somewhat a reiteration of what I was saying, but with some other information. Okay. Social media. I want to really drive home. Facebook is an ad network. Okay. It may be free, but there's a price to pay to get people to actually see your content. I recall when Mark Zuckerberg was presenting to the Senate, US Senate. And I love these senators who are, talking a good game, but they actually don't know what they're talking about. And somebody was kind of saying, Mr. Zuckerberg, how do you make money? And Zuckerberg's simple answer was, we sell ads, sir. Okay. So with social media, what I'm going to recommend is you try to take your followers and see if you can move them to your email program. Okay. Because you have control over your email program. Twitter is awesome. I love it personally. I do go on there with good intentions, and all of a sudden 3 minutes later, I'm saying, why did I come on here? Because there is so much garbage online, right? But there's a term that was coined. I went many years ago to something called an in-person marketing event. Remember those? And when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she hired a social media person to actually create the first social media accounts for the US State Department. And the guy who was running their Twitter account, he said, Twitter is really an area for the digerati, digital plus literati. So you're not going to find, in my experience, tons of people on there. Yes, there are athletes and politicians who have a lot of followers. But to me, Twitter is a place where you get sort of the people who are really experts at certain fields with great things to say. So to me, Twitter is not a place to get your message out to tons of people. For those of you who are sort of in the sort of transit area and you do not have a LinkedIn account, I really, really recommend you do that. I think it's probably more important than Facebook and Twitter. Why? Because LinkedIn is the business platform. It's the workers, the employees of the world are on there. And those are the people who, maybe not as much right now, but those are the people who use transit, who commute. Okay. So I think I really recommend paying attention to that and getting a LinkedIn company page, even if you're not a company. It's called a company page, or at least it was, I think, yesterday, for your organization. The other thing is, when you're on there, the same thing. I think brands, meaning companies, organizations, are some of the worst users of social media because they throw stuff out there and think people are going to react to it. If brands can act more like humans and actually pay attention to other people, I think they get better results. This morning from our Wells and Associates account, I really didn't have anything to share from us, but I found other accounts who actually shared information. There was a local transit authority, I think, who is doing a survey. And so we just retweeted that because it's sort of a public service. We want to help them out. So try to do the right thing on social media. Be there and try to be as quote unquote human as you possibly can. Okay. So here's one thing we do. I mentioned earlier, our brake shuttle shared mobility service. We advertise our trips on social media. What we've been doing for a while now is we advertise on Facebook, where we know a lot of people are, and we incentivize them to sign up for our email notifications. It's not a newsletter, it's a notification. We don't spam people. But basically, once we get people onto our email, and that's a mobile version of our email, one of our emails on the right, we know we have a little better capability to communicate directly to people. SEO, I'm going to go back to that El Paso B cycle. Pay attention to your title. What is the title of your page? Most important thing. Do you have a first paragraph? They really don't even have a paragraph on this page. They're losing an opportunity to communicate with people. Key phrases. Go back to your pages. The great thing about digital is you can and should update it all the time. It's not locked in stone, okay? Cross-link your pages. If you have 4 pages, if you have 20 pages, find ways to link, okay, between your pages and keep people on your site as long as possible. One thing I want to point out, if you have 100 images on your website and you've not put in your alt text attribute, you're losing an opportunity to communicate with people. When Google crawls websites, and they crawl websites all the time, they have no idea what an image is unless you go into the image. And what I'm showing you here is from our website. It's on the WordPress platform. And there's this thing where you can go into any image on a website to what's called alt text. And this was originally created for people with difficulty seeing, where they have a web reader who actually reads what's on the page. And if you don't state what's on your page, on your image, Google won't know. It might be kittens, it might be bikes. Okay, so that's an image, an opportunity for you to put that in there. Okay. Help people consume your content. Okay. The first thing I think you should do is just kind of go back and say, can we revisit our web pages to make sure we're communicating the right messages, the right key phrases and all of that. Okay. Everybody can do this. I mean, I go back and realize 9 months later, oh, I should have changed that so long ago. Okay. Think about friends. I call them partners here. You can call them anything, but you have sort of, everybody has some fans out there or friends who will kind of dialogue with you. Okay. And if they do that, other people will see it. Okay. What is a bounce? That's the second to last bullet. Beware of the bounce. A bounce is when somebody comes to your website, they look at the one page and then they leave the website immediately. That is a bounce. And as you might say or know, every website has a bounce rate. Okay. How many people after seeing that page bounce? You can find this information on Google Analytics. Okay. Everybody wants a low bounce rate. The more links you put and the more value you put on your website, okay, through across different pages, you're going to have people spending more time on your site, doing the things you want and converting, again, maybe signing up for an email newsletter, signing up for a webinar, rather than just leaving right away. Okay. I'm a huge fan, going back to the idea of nobody reads anything, they just look at stuff. Use lots of headers, subheads, bullet lists, numbered lists. I don't know about you. I think most people like reading those because our attention spans are lower and lower. Okay. So those are things you can do to help people consume. Graphic design, get Canva. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sure a lot of you out there have Canva. It's canva.com, $120 a year, amazing capabilities. You can start creating videos for your organization. This image, we had a bunch of nice images from Women's History Month at the beginning of this year. And, you know, I could go into Canva and then create like a montage of what we did. This is all done online in a Canva account. And it also happens to be a great place to get stock imagery. Okay. That's the only thing I'm going to say about Canva. You can resize, you can make infographics. It'll create videos that fit perfectly on YouTube. They already know how to size things to make it for your like LinkedIn background header, things like that. Metadata. I do want to go into this a little bit. We have what we call a case study, like an article on our website, which you see here, which is about transportation demand management or mobility management in Tysons, Virginia. And what we have here is a title. We thought hard about what do we put in that title. Those are our keywords that we really want to emphasize, okay? And we also thought about what image do we want. Metadata, what is meta? Meta is a Greek word, it's a reflexive. It refers back to whatever you're talking about. So if you talk about metadata, metadata is either text or images that relate back to the same page. Okay, let me give you an example. When we share this link for this page on Twitter, what you see here pops up, this image and this title, okay? By design, we have stated that's actually called metadata, and Twitter is saying, hey, do you have a title and an image? And we're saying, yeah, here it is. It's right here on our page. They automatically put it in here. You've all seen this. You go into Facebook, you put a link in, boom, an image suddenly appears, a title appears. That is metadata, okay? Now, when we do this, and you do this to make it as attractive to people as possible, good things happen. It so happens that the Fairfax Economic Development Authority reshared this on their Twitter account. That was awesome because they have over 5,000 followers. So when you pay attention to your metadata, which is when a link on your page is shared on social media or text messaging and increasingly in email, those images and those titles will automatically show up no matter who's doing it. You want other people doing your work for you, other people spreading the word for you, okay? A day after this happened, the Korea arm of the Economic Development Authority shared it as well. So that was really cool. Here's another idea. We went on this cross-country trip, my wife and our 4 daughters and I. We were in Helena, Montana, because my youngest daughter's name is Helena, so we had to go. And I'm thinking, okay, there's Helena Saloon, Helena Middle School, Helena Dry Cleaners. It was like her name was everywhere, my daughter's name. And so I was thinking, okay, well, what happens if I needed dry cleaners? There's only one dry cleaner in Helena that actually has a website, and it's this one. And if I wanted to send the link to this to my wife, I might send it to her, and this is their metadata. There's an image, there's the title, okay? Friendly people, that's Miss Montana, awesome. I think they could improve. They could add something to their title about their hours, or it's 24-hour service or 2-hour service, whatever it is, okay? Contrast that with another place you could do something in the Helena, Montana region is go to the Lewis and Clark County Fairgrounds, okay? So if I emailed this or texted it or messaged it to my wife and I sent her, this is what comes up. They're not paying any attention to their title, their description, and most of all, the image. I'm sorry, folks, this looks like the county dump, okay? And it's not a place I want to go to, okay? So the metadata, it can really help you out with attracting people to your content and also sharing it. One more example, going back to Canva. Courtney knows this, everything we do, every image we put on our web pages has a metadata image that is 1200 by 630, 1200 by 630. This is like, I could probably mutter this in my sleep, okay? So when we produce a blog post about this, we find an image of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's always 1200 by 630. Why? That is what Facebook and LinkedIn want, okay? And it's basically what Twitter wants. They want you to find an image that's this size, and they will show it for you, okay? If you're on WordPress, which we are, I highly recommend getting Yoast. Whoops, I went too fast. Yoast is the plugin that allows you to manage all this. You can see on every page of our website, we can manage SEO. This is how Google will show your page, okay? You can also click on the social tab and you can determine how social media places are going to show your metadata. If you're not on WordPress, you should still be able to do metadata. You can talk to your webmaster, you know, try to pay attention to these and look into these, okay? You can Google this. This is not the only place where you can learn about it. But I do think paying attention to metadata really does have an effect on how your content can perform. So I want to wrap it up and maybe leave time for questions. The 4 things: the long tail exists, conform to it, because we all participate in we act personally the way the long tail kind of exists. Know what's rented, know what's owned, what you have control over. SEO, there are so many changes you can make, and you can just do incremental ones a little bit at a time, okay? Make it easy for humans to consume your information, okay? Go beyond that, people just glance at stuff. Most of all, I really want to encourage you, especially as brands, but also as people, to listen to others. Go online with the idea that you're not going to share anything from your organization. You're just going to look what other people are doing and like and comment, because when you do that, these social media platforms are built so that people know that you're out there in the world, kind of mixing it up. Okay. So it's a form of publishing unto its own. All right. So feel free to contact me or Courtney. As far as Wells and Associates, our company, we're online. If you want to reach out to us like on LinkedIn and connect, would love to. Just search us on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you think, wherever you are. And I don't know, Courtney, you had anything to say, or if there's any questions?
Courtney, do you have anything to say before we go through the questions?
I don't. I just noticed that there's quite a few questions.
Oh boy.
I'm going to step to the side.
All right.
Probably Loretta
Okay.
and Nick.
All right, so we have about 20 minutes left, and let's see. Our first question was from Brandon. How do you defeat, decode, and deconstruct the social media algorithms?
Could you say it one more time?
How do you defeat, decode, and deconstruct the social media algorithms?
I don't think you can defeat an algorithm. I think it's like, I think at some point I came up with the phrase, stress is a wave, ride it. So know the algorithm, okay? And play their game and make it work for you. Let me give you an example. If you share something on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn algorithm, and again, you can Google these things and find these answers. So this is not like, this is the only place you can find this. If you share something on LinkedIn, LinkedIn sees you shared a link or something. And in the first 60 minutes, that's 6-0, if other people are not liking or commenting, reacting to it, LinkedIn will let that content die. They literally won't show it to many more people. Okay. Now, if you share a piece of content and you get 6 of your colleagues to like it and comment, all of a sudden LinkedIn's like, oh, this must be valuable. Okay. They supposedly always discount the first like and the first comment. So like when we share things from Wells and Associates, I always like it and comment because that's like sort of like a grandma or your mom liked it, I just kind of get mine out of there. So the next person who does makes it count. When that happens, LinkedIn will start to show your content to more people. Okay. I tell people on LinkedIn, like or comment, I don't care that you reshare it. If you reshare content on LinkedIn, it doesn't do anything. Well, it does do something, but it doesn't help that piece of content move through the system. Liking and especially commenting, again, having a dialogue is what works. And we have had really good success. It's taken us a long time to kind of train people to say, you have to participate in this, So I don't think it's a question of decoding or decoding is part of it. It's understand what each of them are. Facebook, I think, I'm not a Facebook expert. I've been on there a lot. I've done a lot of advertising on Facebook. My feeling on Facebook is if you don't advertise, people will not really see your content. That's the game they play. And the more content that is on each of these platforms, there's more competition. So there's a concept of organic. Organic is anything that is not paid. And so some of these are just turning into ad platforms.
Okay. Speaking of organic, the next question is, have you seen a difference in engagement between organic and inorganic posting using posting platforms like Hootsuite or Ladder versus organically posting content?
I'll be honest with you, I stopped using Hootsuite a few years ago. Now, certainly there are places who use it. For those who don't know, Hootsuite is a software program, and there are other ones like it, where you can put your LinkedIn and your Twitter and your Facebook account all in there, and you can kind of share one message across all platforms at the same time. First of all, every platform is different. The way they share information, the way you tag people and everything is different. If I'm going to share content, I do it, I pay attention to it. I can tag people. Tagging people, especially on LinkedIn, is huge. If you tag people, they are more likely to see it and react. If you tag people, if you want to tag 50 people, you better be sure that they're going to react. Because if you tag a bunch of people and they don't react, LinkedIn says, oh, maybe this is spam, okay? I personally am not a big fan of those because I feel that it makes me start to think, oh, if I just push a button, it'll work. It doesn't work that way. I may have the exact same link, and I will compose it differently on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook because each of those platforms are different. And some people are on LinkedIn and other people use Facebook as a private, family and friends. And I don't like to violate privacy. So I'm not really a person who can really give good commentary on the effective use of those platforms, which I'm sure there is.
Okay. All right. Loretta, let's switch to you. I know at the end of your presentation, you had some questions you wanted to ask everyone online.
I had an answer for helmets wearers for people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I can find my slide.
Okay.
So one of the answers is that some women, they cut their hair short and they state that is much easier to maintain. Well, that's not me. So you can wear a protective style, braids, cornrows, twists, ponytails, etc. And I usually have my hair braided, cornrow, twists, or in a ponytail, or or a wig, or a weave. And to protect my hair from the helmet, I always wear a satin bonnet or a satin scarf under my helmet. That's all the tips I had for that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Loretta?
Loretta, I just wanted to say I am in the middle of growing my COVID ponytail, so your answers were valid to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just wanted to jump in live real quick. I know Loretta and I kind of talked about this, and I think a lot of people have concerns, like you said, and me specifically, I'm definitely one of them. As a Black woman, I spend a lot of money on my hair. So the last thing I'm going to do is put a helmet on it. So I think, your suggestions are very valid, that maybe if I, use something satin, I can then put a helmet on it that way. Are there any other helmets that are maybe, made for things like that, specifically the helmet, or is it just kind of the accessories that you have to use with the helmet?
No, when you buy your helmet, the helmet have a size adjuster dial in the back of it. So you can make it fit to your head. And the straps also make it fit to your head. So depending on your hairstyle, like if you have, I have really thick hair. And if you have, I can't wear my hair in a bun. So I have to let it down and put it in a ponytail. Because if I have it up in the bun, I can't put my helmet on. Sometimes I had a friend of mine, she had cornrows and she had them twist up on her head. She couldn't get the helmet on. So we had to take the cornrows down and let them flow, and then she can get her helmet on. Now, the helmet have an adjuster dial in the back of it that will help fit it to your head. And depending on the manufacturer, some come in different sizes. So you can get small, medium, large, or extra large, along with the adjustment dial.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two more questions. I think for Nick, how should we be leveraging Google Analytics to make the most of these best practices for our website?
That's a great question. You definitely should. Google Analytics is a free platform. If you have a Google account, you can get Google Analytics. What you have to do is basically connect Google Analytics to your website, and your web person should be able to do that. I like to say when you look at analytics, oftentimes you don't like what you see, but it's great because you can look at a page and you can say, for example, you can look at your whole website and say in the last month or last 6 months, these were the most popular pages. Why is the bounce rate so high? Or why can't that page have more? It starts getting you asking questions. So for example, if a ton of people go to a particular web page and your bounce rate is high, number one, it's pretty popular. Number two, why are people leaving? And most of us have it within us personally and organizationally to start answering those questions. So you say, well, maybe I could put a link to some other content or links to other content. Maybe I can put like I said, sign up to an email newsletter or whatever it is. So it really depends. But I think if you know your organization well, you're going to have some ideas of how to solve what I'll call the problems that present themselves when you look at Google Analytics, which are really just opportunities.
Okay. The next question is, Brandon had noticed you didn't include Instagram. How many companies have greater success with storytelling elements?
Yeah, Brandon, you are so correct. Look, I'm on Instagram, and I'm sorry. Maybe that is one of my professional weaknesses because I've never had a huge opportunity to use Instagram professionally. I certainly think you can use it if you are if you are in a sector where images are important. I think it would be a great thing to do. The matter of how you kind of use conversion and I don't want to say monetize it is a whole nother matter. You know, we've talked about using Instagram at our company, but what I basically say is unless I can have sort of a crowdsourced cooperative effort where a lot of people are taking photos, I'm not interested in it because I can't just keep adding. I think every time you add a social media platform, you've got to ask, will I get value out of it? Will I be able to get it? And so I apologize that I wasn't able to do that, but I'm sure you could get some much better advice elsewhere than me.
All right. This one is about YouTube. If you were just starting a YouTube channel, do I want to get clients' emails?
Well, I don't, I guess I don't, I think to me, they're two separate things. I mean, YouTube is YouTube, right? It's a video channel, and email is getting clients' email. Now, there are a lot of email programs they can use, many of them for free. There's MailChimp, there's ConvertKit, there's what is it? Aweber, there's, you know, there's so many out there. If you just Google email service provider, you're going to find a lot of them. And truth be told, what another one, Omnisend, 90% of the capabilities that these email programs offer are the same. Okay. But YouTube is a place to put videos, and to me, it's kind of a separate thing. The one thing I would say about YouTube is if you get, say, a Canva account, you can start creating videos for very low cost that really was difficult to do. So we're planning actually doing a lot more videos than we've ever done in the past. I'm sorry if maybe I'm not answering the question correctly, because I don't. To me, they're two separate things. They're sort of two. Email is a channel to communicate information. YouTube is a sort of like a publishing platform where you create content, but you might share that on email.
Okay. Okay, this one's a long question. I want to draw people experiencing that sense of unwelcome to bike infrastructure so their voices can be heard by those responsible for the infrastructure. I lean towards events like a hosted themed bike ride or staff input tables. Any other better suggestions on how that can happen?
I think I touched on the idea of sort of developing friends online, and I know that there are a lot of biking organizations in the whole DC metropolitan area. And I would suspect, and there are a lot of people in those, and I think they have some pretty strong social media followings. I think one of the things to do is to set up you could set up like, say, a biking equity, organization, not even an organization, just a social media account. And that there would be a lot of people in these biking organizations. I'm thinking, I don't know, there's everything from in Virginia, you got Fairfax. I think I'm trying to remember if there was even like Black Women Bicycle Organization, but there's, between DC, Maryland, and Virginia, there's so many. Yes. And I feel that there are a lot of people, if you overlap, if those are all like circles in a Venn diagram, you would find a lot of those people would overlap and say, yeah, we care about this, that, the issue of no bike lanes in this part of DC is the same thing over in Montgomery County, and that you have sort of shared interests. So this is where I think digital and social media has the ability to connect people that you can't necessarily always do in person. I'm not even talking without COVID. I just think that the message could really resonate, and to cooperate with others and get them to help share the concerns would be, I think it could be effective. And I hope that begins to answer that question.
All right, I'd like to chime in there too.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Loretta. That was probably for you. I apologize.
It was for both, so yeah, you're
okay.
fine. You're fine. Absolutely. Go ahead, Loretta.
Okay. There are organizations that are looking into that and trying to figure out the best way to address that issue. One of the places that have a strong voice in the community, and I'm trying to get them to move over to the underserved areas is WABA, the Washington Area Bicycle Association.
Mhm.
Another place is the League of American Bicyclists. Also, Bike for People is another organization with a voice. And so I have been advocating, and one of the problems are, I don't know what the problems are. One of the problems is gentrification. And so people had gotten pushed out their communities. And so it's hard for them to be receptive to people coming to them with new ideas. So that's a big issue right there. But we're trying to get the line of communication open. We got people ears open now. I got WABA ears open. I got the lead ears open, and a couple DDOT ears is open. So that's the start.
Okay, all right. Last question, Loretta. Someone had posted, I really want to know more about how we as TDMers can work to make all those bike trail inequities more equitable, and anything else we can do.
Well, one of the things that WABA is doing, after I pointed out about the Anacostia Trail closing at dusk, at dark, and the Capitol Crescent Trail staying open to 10 p.m., they contacted the National Park Service and confirmed that the Park Service was in charge of Anacostia Park, but they didn't get an answer for the discrepancy in the two closing times of the different parks. And they said that somebody's supposed to get back to them, and they was waiting on that. As far as advocating, I think if you reach out to WABA, to let WABA know that you are interested and you want to help. Black women bike, Black girls do bike, getting it in cyclists. I can name a lot of groups. Color of cycling. All of us are trying to make it more equitable.
Loretta, if I could chime in, there's somebody who just started following our Wells Twitter account. It's the East Coast Greenway, greenway.org. Connecting from Florida to Maine might be
right.
Good up. Yeah.
Yep. That's part of the Capitol Trail Coalition.
Yeah.
And we've been working with them too.
Okay. And one of the things I'd like to say here in Hampton Roads, we have been giving bike repair stations and bike racks to local businesses and employers and municipalities, especially some of the new bike trails that have been going on around here. So we kind of offered our donations for that with our funds, and then with the transit agencies as well. I don't know how other TDMs function, with their budgets and things, but because we are pretty bike friendly in Norfolk, we definitely want to get those commuters out there because it's been booming, since COVID started. So that may be an option for you too, is to reach out to TDMs.
Because Southern PG County does not have any biking infrastructure either. And I just went and I approached a business. Well, I was on a conference call with the Capitol Trail Coalition last week. And that was one of my pet peeves. I pointed out that if I go ride errands in PG County, I have nowhere to lock my bike to. Right. And they were saying that there's some programs, but I have to come from the businesses. And so I went on an errand last week, and I talked with the business owner and asked him if he would put a bike rack on his property if he didn't have to pay for it. And he told me most definitely.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And he gave me his card so I can email him the information. Okay. Because I told the people, I said, I ride around, I got 1,300 miles in so far this year. I have no problem talking to anybody and everybody. So if there's something, if you want me to talk to the business owners, then I can ask, they can tell me no. I can ask, they can tell me yes. But all I can do is ask.
Great. Well, that's amazing. It is 3 o'clock, so our time is up. We do want to thank Loretta and Nick for presenting today. This is being recorded, so we will have it up on our website within the week. So thank you everyone for spending time with us this afternoon, and have a great day.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.